Bill Maher called out CNN's Kaitlan Collins on the network's bias. Let's watch.
You made press because you were on Stephen Colbert's show, and he said something like, you guys at CNN just report the news straight. And the crowd burst into laughter.
CNN is the place where both sides can watch. And
I'm talking about the people on CNN. And what I know what the conservative side of America thinks, and I don't blame them. They were just gushing about how great a speech it was. And I think she did fine. I didn't think it was as good as they were making it out to be. It does look like tokenism. It's kind of like the same as The View. In a way, I feel like it's more insulting than what Trump does. And Trump says you're the enemy of the people, which is pretty bad. But she's kind of saying I don't need you. I'm not talking to you. You don't matter. You're not relevant anymore. To me, that's even worse than I hate you. It's like I don't think about you.
I don't know if it's worse than denigrating the press on a daily basis, which is what Donald Trump did.
Recently, we showed you Bill Maher completely torching Kaitlan Collins for going after Caroline Leavitt. You'd think that would be enough to make her ease up, right? Nope. Collins doubled down. The CNN anchor is still coming after Leavitt, Trump, and Elon Musk with even more desperate attacks. But Bill? He wasn't about to let that slide. This time, the takedown was even more brutal. Pure fireworks. Lucky for you, we've got all the receipts. Let's roll.
Would you continue to give Ukraine money and weapons if you're elected? What's the answer?
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours. It'll be absolutely
Do you
over.
want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people.
Can I just follow up on that because that's a really important
Excuse me,
statement
let me
that
just
you just
follow
made
up.
there. Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying.
We'll get to the Bill Maher takedown in a second. But first, let's talk about why a guy who voted for Biden suddenly sounds like he's siding with Republicans. The reason? Woke journalists have been setting traps for Trump long before the election. Leading the charge? None other than Kaitlan Collins. That clip we just watched. The CNN anchor wasn't looking for real answers. She was fishing for a gotcha moment. A trap. If Trump said he wanted Ukraine to win, they'd accuse him of escalating World War III. If he backed Russia, they'd call him a traitor. A lose-lose setup designed to make him look unfit for office. But Trump isn't new to this game. He dodged the setup flawlessly, insisting he wanted to prevent further loss of life, whether Ukrainian or Russian. Smart move. But if there's one thing the woke mob hates, it's losing control of the narrative. And trust me, they weren't about to let this slide. So they doubled down.
Why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them?
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Oof. Looks like Trump wasn't having any of Kaitlan Collins' antics, and he called her out right then and there. And honestly, he had every reason to. Instead of asking a straightforward question, Collins was rambling, layering in commentary, and wasting time, almost like she was filibustering her own interview. Classic CNN move. It was obvious what she was doing. This wasn't about getting real answers. Her entire strategy was to trap Trump with a convoluted no-win question. Something designed to make him stumble, or even better, land him in a media-manufactured gotcha moment. But Trump? He saw it coming a mile away. Like a seasoned fighter, he bobbed, weaved, and dodged the trap, then landed a brutal counterpunch. 1 second, Collins thought she had him cornered. The next, she was the one left scrambling. And as always, Trump flipped the script right in her face. But she wasn't done. This time, she set her sights on Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr.
That environment wasn't just created by Donald Trump.
Okay, but can I say, you can't blame, and everyone wants your dad to be safe. No one wants the threats against his life to happen, but you can't blame the media for those threats. There's been no evidence that's what drove those.
And allows people to have a platform to call someone literally Hitler every day for 9 years, it creates it. Okay. Whether you want to believe it or not, that's a fact.
But as you know, J.D. Vance once likened your dad to Hitler as well. He questioned if he was America's Hitler.
This heated exchange came right after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And Trump Jr. didn't hold back, blaming the media for fueling the attack by constantly comparing his father to Hitler. And honestly, He's right. For nearly a decade, the media has painted Trump as America's Hitler, a dictator hell-bent on destroying the country. They've mocked him, demonized him, and turned him into a monster. And did you catch that smug moment when Kaitlan Collins claimed J.D. Vance once compared Trump to Hitler? So what? Vance didn't have the media's power, influence, or massive reach. His words never carried the same weight. Plus, he likely bought into the media's anti-Trump smear campaign until he actually got to know Trump and saw through the lies. Did I ask at any surprise Bill Maher flared up? He sees the hypocrisy, the double standards, and the disastrous impact of media-driven smear campaigns. And this time, he wasn't letting them off the hook.
Was it appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course. You don't follow this.
Saying you know for a fact that that's what they did. I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true.
Bill Maher has had it with the media's double standards. For years, Kaitlan Collins and her colleagues have carefully crafted a one-sided narrative, painting Biden as a saint and Trump as the ultimate villain. They're not just reporting the news. They're manufacturing it. Their obsession with keeping Democrats in power has led to a relentless smear campaign against Trump, twisting his words, spinning headlines, and fueling the outrage machine 24/7. But when a scandal involves their guy, silence. Take Hunter Biden, for example. His leaked laptop exposed damning evidence of corruption, influence peddling, and shady foreign deals. Yet, Kaitlan and her crew buried the story like it never even happened. Now imagine if Don Jr. had even 1/10 of Hunter's baggage. CNN would run wall-to-wall coverage for weeks that's exactly why Bill Maher snapped. He sees the hypocrisy. He knows the media isn't just biased, they're activists in disguise. And this time, he wasn't about to let them off easy.
It was what you'd have to call some sort of media suppression of Hunter Biden's computer right before the election.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Okay, and the truth is, I still don't know what I think about that. And sometimes,
right.
But I mean, to actually parse everything in there and figure out just how dirty Biden Sr. is as a result of the information there.
Can I go to step two? But nothing really. It was common. It was the kind of sort of everyday graft that's sleazy, but doesn't affect the world. Probably.
Yes.
Hunter Biden sold his father's influence to get money. But Joe Biden himself would not give away our nuclear secrets to the Chinese. He's not, he has a soft spot for his son, his ne'er-do-well, stupid.
I mean, you've heard his voicemails to his Hunter.
So, like, Dad, I'm in a little bit of a jam. Could you just meet with the Chinese guy next week? It would mean a lot to me. And Joe would do it. And then Hunter would get the money for the meeting.
Yep, things got that bad when the Hunter Biden scandal exploded. Honestly, we're probably lucky Hunter didn't sweet-talk his dad into handing over nuclear codes for a quick payday. Given his track record, would anyone even be shocked? The man has sold access, influence, and who knows what else. But sure, let's all pretend Trump is the real villain here. The media bends over backward to protect the Bidens, acting like Hunter is just a misunderstood guy with personal struggles. But let's be real. If Trump Jr. had half of Hunter's scandals, the media would demand his public execution. The hypocrisy is unreal. They'll manufacture a scandal out of Trump simply breathing. Yet when hard evidence of corruption, shady deals, and influence peddling drops on Hunter, crickets. And that's exactly why people like Bill Maher, who once leaned left, are finally calling out the nonsense. At some point, even lifelong Democrats have to admit this isn't journalism. It's propaganda. And Kaitlan Collins? She's at the forefront of it all. So when she finally sat down for an interview with Bill Maher, we knew there'd be fireworks. But no one expected a demolition of this level.
You made press because you were on Stephen Colbert's show, and he said something like, you guys at CNN just report the news straight. And the crowd burst into laughter. Look, I'm on CNN now. I guess we're on it right now. I mean, they show this show the next night. I don't know how we get away with it with all the fucks, but they do. And all these dirty jokes. But I'm glad. And I'm a big rooter for CNN. But that tells you a lot, doesn't it? I mean, how do you guys think you are doing in that arena of This is a terribly divided country. We're not only politicized, a lot of people just hate the other side. And CNN, in my view, should be the place where both sides can watch. How do you think you're doing with that?
How is CNN is the place where both sides can watch. And I think, my show is evidence of that. We have lawmakers on from both parties. We'll have Elizabeth Warren on one night. We'll have Ted Cruz on.
Bill Maher didn't hold back. He torched Kaitlan Collins and CNN for their so-called impartiality. He exposed the network's fake attempts at balance, calling out how they occasionally allow a token conservative voice just to pretend they're fair. But here's the truth. CNN's version of balance is a joke. They'll bring on a Republican, usually someone who already hates Trump, let them talk for maybe 30 seconds, and then spend the next 10 minutes tearing them apart. That's not balance, that's controlled opposition. Meanwhile, when it comes to Democrats, CNN acts like an extended PR team, running damage control, spinning scandals into minor inconveniences, and shielding their political allies from real scrutiny. Maher sees through the game. He knows networks like CNN aren't in the business of journalism anymore. They're in the business of narrative control. They decide which stories matter, which ones get buried, and how the public should think. And when someone dares to call them out, they cry misinformation and try to silence the criticism. No wonder Bill snapped. The hypocrisy was just too much to ignore. I'm
from Alabama. I'm from a very red state. I have a very conservative family, a lot of them who are Trump voters. They watch my show every night, and I think they know that they can trust me, that, we call bullshit on every side, not just whatever leaning our audience may be. And I think that's something that people actually want more of.
Dear Kaitlan, just because you're from a red state and have Republican family members doesn't magically erase CNN's blatant bias. Newsflash, your personal background doesn't make you an impartial journalist. The CNN is still pushing the same predictable left-wing narratives, and no amount of, but my family is Republican, is going to change that. For all you know, they tune in out of obligation, not agreement, like parents sitting through their kids' off-key school recital. That doesn't mean they're buying what you're selling, that let's be real. If CNN were actually balanced, you wouldn't need to bring up your personal life as some kind of credibility shield. The facts speak for themselves. CNN downplays Democratic scandals, amplifies every anti-Trump narrative they can find, and then pats themselves on the back for being fair, because they let a Republican talk once in a blue moon. And Bill Maher? He sees it. That's why he called you out. And he's not the only one. Megyn Kelly had something to say too. Check this out.
I'm sorry, but she's only a star with leftists. And the fact that she has some roots in Alabama does not make her a fair and balanced reporter. I will submit to the record, her biggest sin is not that she is biased, though she is. It's that she's boring. She's extremely boring with no personality. I have a pro tip for her. Smile. Try smiling every once in a while. Try not to be, like, in your delivery, such a cold-hearted all the time, because it gives people nothing to bond to. You can be a tough interviewer and also have some warmth.
Megyn nailed it. Kaitlan Collins can't outrun the bias tag, no matter how hard she tries. She's as left-leaning as CNN's editorial board at a Biden fundraiser. The sooner she drops this unbiased journalist act, the better. Nobody's buying it. But you know what else Megyn got right? The pro tip she threw Kaitlan's way. Because let's be honest, Kaitlan desperately needs to smile more and ditch that perpetual smirk. It's like she's allergic to warmth. You can be a tough interviewer without looking like you just swallowed a lemon. There's a fine line between sharp and cold-hearted. And right now, Kaitlan's walking around like a human ice cube. You don't have to like your guests, but maybe, just maybe, try not to look like you're plotting their downfall mid-interview. Megyn Kelly gets it. Bill Maher gets it. And judging by the ratings, the audience gets it too. Maybe it's time Kaitlan finally takes the hint. Or maybe Ben Shapiro can help.
Stephen Colbert had on Kaitlan Collins from CNN, obviously talking about how terrible Trump is and what a terrible job he's doing and how Kamala Harris has all the momentum and all of that sort of thing. But that's not the interesting part of the clip. The interesting part of the clip is that Stephen Colbert says, in perfect seriousness, with a straight face, that the legacy media are objective. That CNN is objective, and listen to the reaction of the crowd. Again, this is a crowd who opts into viewing The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, which means that they are all on the left.
Trump has kind of been thrown on his heels by this, and he's not really sure how to go after Vice President Harris. He knew his attack lines on President Biden. He really has struggled with how to go after someone who's 20 years younger than him, who is a different gender, a different race. It's kind of been this moment where he has not been able to coalesce around a single attack line.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. No, I know. CNN makes a... I know
that's supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is.
Okay, that is an incredible admission, number one, by Stephen Colbert.
Even the left is tired of pretending CNN is neutral. They know the network leans their way, and honestly, they probably love the special treatment. This isn't about journalism anymore. It's about narrative control. That's exactly what Ben Shapiro pointed out. CNN isn't fooling anyone. Their audience expects the bias, wants the bias, and tunes in for the bias. They're not looking for fair reporting. They just want their beliefs repeated back to them. And CNN? They're more than happy to oblige. They push anti-Trump hysteria, bury Democrat scandals, and call it news. But here's the irony. Even left-wing viewers know it's all theater. They just don't care. As long as CNN keeps feeding them stories that make them feel morally superior, they'll keep watching. That's why Bill Maher and Ben Shapiro both see the problem. When even longtime liberals are rolling their eyes at CNN's fake neutrality, you know the network has completely lost control of its own narrative. Meanwhile, Kaitlan, our supposed neutral journalist, is too busy fishing for gotcha moments with Karoline Leavitt.
Which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus. Many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that...
No one has a right to the Oval Office, unless, of course, you're the President of the United States. Access isn't a given, it's a privilege. You'd think Kaitlan Collins would understand that. But no, because if there's one thing the woke media loves, it's entitlement. And when they don't get their way, they throw a tantrum. Trump's presidency made that crystal clear. The media wanted unlimited access, but when they disrespected him, ignored his directives, and acted like they were in charge, Trump shut the door. Rightfully, so that's exactly what Karoline Leavitt reminded them. The president decides who steps into the Oval Office, not entitled journalists, and not mainstream media elites who think their press passes make them royalty. But that's the real issue here. Today's media doesn't just want access, they want control. And when they don't get it, they scream attacks on democracy. Meanwhile, the actual attack on democracy is a media that only respects the office when a Democrat is sitting behind the desk. And guess who just joined the pile-on against Leavitt and the White House? Former Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. But wait until you hear Leavitt's brilliant clapback.
Your predecessor, Karine Jean-Pierre, who presided over many novel press access restrictions, criticized the recent changes to the press pool made by your office. She said in an interview, quote, what we're looking at is what North Korea is doing. What's your response to that? And can you say anything to allay concerns that unfavorable coverage will be punished in this new press pool system?
I think that's the same individual who said from this podium numerous times that the commander-in-chief was mentally and physically up for the job, which we knew was a lie. Many people in this room knew it was a lie. Many of you were admonished for asking questions about that truth. So when it comes to truth and transparency, this administration, this White House is setting the example. This president is taking far more questions than his predecessor, Joe Biden, did on a daily basis, and that will continue.
Reporter asked Karoline Leavitt about Karine Jean-Pierre's criticism of the new press pool restrictions, quoting her comparison to North Korea's media control. Her response? Absolutely brutal.
And it's not just the Democrat Party. The mainstream media still doesn't get it. Last night, MSNBC's Nicole Wallace disgustingly looped in a 13-year-old boy with brain cancer into an attack on the president over January 6th. In CNN's first chyron out of the speech called it divisive. President Trump wasn't divisive. The Democrats were. And CNN was proven wrong by their own viewers, 69% of whom, in a post-speech poll, said they had a positive reaction to the president's speech. It's sad and frankly pathetic that Democrats and liberals in the legacy media continue to allow their hatred for the president to override their love for our country. But nevertheless, the president will continue to unify this nation through policies that are grounded in common sense and that uplift all Americans.
Karine Jean-Pierre must have selective amnesia. She seems to forget that she presided over some of the most restrictive press policies in recent history. Yet now, she has the audacity to call out Caroline Leavitt for limiting access to the Oval Office. The hypocrisy is off the charts. This is classic left-wing double standards. When they shut down access, it's for security or protecting democracy. But when a Republican does it, suddenly it's an authoritarian crisis. Give us a break, and let's not forget the real reason for those restrictions under Biden. The man was clearly mentally unfit for office, and everyone saw it. Yet Karine stood at that podium gaslighting America, telling us Biden was sharp as ever, while he was literally getting lost on stage. Leavitt's press restrictions weren't about hiding a weak leader. They were about maintaining order. Unlike Jean-Pierre, she's not scrambling to cover up an administration that's falling apart. That's the real difference. Oh yeah, Karine, sit this one out.
Okay, and finally, new rule. Someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging, not keep digging. Talk about doubling down on what got you fucked in the first place. Even the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying the Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it.
It's pathetic. Legacy media hates Trump more than they supposedly love this country. From the moment he announced his campaign, they've worked overtime to paint him as the villain. And now that he's back, they aren't just reporting the news. They're setting traps, twisting narratives, and launching coordinated attacks on him and his administration. But here's the kicker. People aren't buying it anymore. Poll after poll shows that Americans are done with the media's obsessive Trump derangement syndrome. They're sick of the woke narratives, the one-sided reporting, and the manufactured outrage. And legacy media, they're panicking. Because when you lose the trust of the people, you lose everything. What were Bill Maher's final words for Kaitlan and CNN? Ice is spot on. Kaitlan and CNN need to put down the shovel. Because at this point, they're just digging their own grave. Their obsession with taking down Trump is exactly what got him reelected in the first place. The more they demonize him, the stronger his support grows. You'd think they'd learn by now, but nope. Same tired tactics. Same disastrous results that if CNN wants to salvage even a shred of credibility, they need to stop with the endless hit pieces and start acting like the neutral media outlet they pretend to be. But let's be real. That's not happening. Because CNN isn't about journalism anymore. It's about narrative control. They don't report the news. They manufacture it. They don't cover Trump fairly. They weaponize every story against him. And instead of focusing on actual issues, they're too busy playing political operatives. Maher's right. Stop digging. But knowing CNN, they'll probably just grab a bigger shovel. At the end of the day, the media's obsession with Trump has backfired spectacularly. They tried to destroy him, but all they did was make him stronger. They pushed fake narratives, ignored real scandals, and acted like activists instead of journalists. And now, people see right through it.